Welcome back to this episode of The Self-Led Leader. Today, I'm going to be talking about the 3 simple things I love to teach my clients that make the biggest difference in how they communicate and how confident they feel speaking to others. So without further ado, let's get right into things today. Welcome to The Self-Led Leader, a podcast for high performers who want to lead from alignment, not expectation. I'm Dr. Christina Ady, a social psychologist, and I'm here to help you lead with clarity, not chaos. This show is about what happens before the strategy, your mindset, your nervous system, the inner leadership that shapes everything you say and do. Because presence isn't about being loud, it's about being aligned. Let's get right into it. Now, there's ample research to show that people make stereotypes and assumptions about others in a matter of seconds. Back in graduate school, I used to do a ton of research on stereotypes, and it did not matter which stereotype we were looking at necessarily. One thing was consistently clear. People have stereotypes, and people make assumptions in line with those stereotypes in seconds. So often we would do these fun experiments where we would show someone an image or a word, and that image or word would automatically associate specific stereotypes in their mind that would sometimes even influence their behaviors down the line. And what does that mean for you? It means when you're showing up at work, when you're showing up in your business, when you're talking to other people, they are making assumptions about you, your authority, your credibility, and your expertise based on their first impression of you, including based on their first impression of how you sound. That's why there's so much interest and impact in understanding how to speak with more confidence, because it makes a difference. Now, imagine you are in a meeting and you meet a new coworker for the first time, and they show up and they use a ton of filler words. They speak very quietly. They ramble, maybe they talk in circles, or maybe they're so incredibly quiet that there's maybe stuttering, repeating their words, saying ums and ahs constantly. Number one, you would find it incredibly hard to believe that they're credible, good at their job, or that you can establish some sort of relationship with them that would be positive, right? Like, yes, maybe you are someone who's like, Christina, I don't believe that. I'm a kind-hearted person. I give people the benefit of the doubt. Yes, so do I. But also, we continue to make stereotypes and assumptions about people. And the first impression that they make, including in how they sound, influences us in how we think we should approach the relationship. It influences the type of relationship we think we can have with this person, and vice versa. So when you are showing up in a meeting, on a call with a brand new client, the way that you show up gives them an immediate impression, an immediate assessment of what they think about you, of how they think the relationship will go, of how they think your expertise will be on this project, on this thing that you're working on together, on how they feel they can communicate with you based on the quality of the communication they already see in you, or the communication quality that you're presenting to them in those first few minutes in that first session. And so, like, by now, everyone's so familiar with the idea, the cliche of first impressions matter. But I really want you to understand that your communication first impression matters just as much. And so it's incredibly important to put your best foot forward, if you will, and to speak with clarity, to speak with credibility, and to speak with confidence when you are speaking with others. And so, let me introduce you to the 3 things I love to teach my clients that honestly give you the biggest bang for your buck. These are 3 little micro habits that I want you to work on, that I want you to practice, that will make the biggest difference in how you show up. And they're honestly the most minor tweaks that you can make. So the 3 things are your pace, your volume, and your tone. And the combination of these 3 things completely transforms the way that you communicate with others. So let me break it down for you. Your pace is the speed at which you talk. Now, most people are familiar with this concept. They have a general understanding of how fast or how slow they talk in general. And if you're self-aware, and if you tend to sort of track your habits and understand your triggers, you know that in certain cases when you are perhaps a bit nervous, a bit more on edge, you likely speak faster. Maybe when you're tired, when you've zoned out in a meeting, when you're trying to be calm and composed. Maybe you're intentionally speaking a lot slower. Now, the first part to understand is really, where are you on the sliding scale of being slow to being fast? Understand this to get a sense of how you speak in general. Now, the cherry on top, if you will, is not only understanding what your pace tends to be, but understanding how much variety you have in your pace. Because it's one thing to say, I understand, I always speak slowly, and I'm really watching my words and being careful and cautious and articulating things very clearly. But if you're speaking at a snail's pace consistently, you become monotone. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're constantly speaking at a very quick pace, it's very effective at the beginning when you're trying to articulate something and to come across as more confident. But when you continue to speak at a fast pace and you don't take any breaks and there is no variation in your pace, then it becomes very difficult for people to process what you're saying, because it is monotone as well, but on the other side of the scale. So hopefully that demonstration helps you understand that it's not just about what your pace is. It's about understanding what your pace is so you can add variety to it intentionally. So that the things that you're excited about, the things that you're passionate about, the things that you want to emphasize have more speed to them. And by the same token, the things that you really want to highlight, you can emphasize slowly and let it simmer, right? Slowing down and pausing is so incredibly effective, but so is speeding up and adding that passion and adding that oomph so that people don't fall asleep when you speak. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to really understand is, what is your pace and how much variety do you have in it? Okay, now the second thing that I want you to really self-assess here is, what is your volume like? Now, volume is just how loud or how quiet you talk. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's very, very similar to your pace, where you may consistently speak on the quieter end, or you may consistently speak on the louder end. Speaking quieter can be great for one-on-one contexts. It can be great for those intimate conversations, for giving someone feedback or having a difficult conversation you're coaching them through. Speaking loud can be great if you're in meetings, on Zoom calls, leading a team, adding some pizzazz to wake everyone up. Both have their time and their place, but again, by the same token, you cannot only speak quietly and you cannot only speak loudly. So you have to understand where it is that you're starting from to then understand how you can add the variety in. So if you're always speaking very, very loud, even when you're in a one-on-one conversation, well, now you understand that you need to teach yourself and practice speaking quieter and softer and having that balance to add that variety. Now, the third thing that I want you to self-assess is your tone. And tone is honestly my favorite, because it's one of the most overlooked aspects of communication, because it happens automatically. Okay, hear me out. Your tone is really your emotion. It's the emotion that you're conveying with your voice when you speak. Now, think back to walking in, maybe to your parents' house, maybe home, and your partner, your spouse, whoever, and they call your name. Right? I love using moms as an example because it's so relatable. Imagine walking into your house and your mom calls your name. Based on the way that she says your name, you immediately either go, I'm in trouble, or like, happy to be home, right? And it's all in the emotion. It's all in the tone. Now, for whatever reason, I see a common misconception in communication advice that mistakenly treats tone as if it's volume and just says like, add variety or basic tips like that. And I really want you to have this takeaway that tone is not just about how loud or quiet you are. Tone is the emotion that your voice conveys. Now, here's the thing that everyone overlooks that is so incredibly important to understand, because it's all backed by your psychology. Whatever you are feeling in the moment, it comes through in your voice. Now, imagine you are in a meeting. You're a team lead, you're in a meeting with other team leads, your supervisor, and there's one or two coworkers who are notorious for speaking over others or for shutting down ideas. Maybe you already feel some anxiety about to introduce your idea to everyone. The fact that you are already feeling some anxiety is going to come through in your voice automatically. That's why if you look into any sort of public speaking advice or communication advice, one of the most common concerns is, how do I overcome my nerves? Because when I'm nervous, my voice starts shaking or my voice quivers. Because your voice, like your emotions, there's literally a physiological connection. There's a psychological connection as well between what you're feeling physically, what you're feeling emotionally, and what is coming through in the way that you talk. That's why if you're frustrated, if you're angry, and you're talking about something unrelated to that frustration, you're still going to have some of that frustration in your voice. Now, if you're a parent, you'll understand this. Maybe your kids have been misbehaving. Maybe your kids have been being kids and not listening. And now you need to tell them to do something else. And you're just like, you're just yelling. You're just grouchy. You're just strict. It comes through automatically. Okay. And so the majority of people that I talk to really overlook this point at the beginning. And that's why it's one of my favorite things to talk about with my clients, because it makes the biggest difference. Because number one, all of a sudden you understand how I'm feeling is directly impacting the way that I sound and the way that others are reacting to how I sound. Because again, go back to the example of your mom. The way that you say something, as soon as you start talking, the emotion that's coming through your voice, other people are picking up on it. And so if you're speaking with a client and you're suggesting a new idea, but you're frustrated because they shut down your previous 5 ideas, and so you've worked yourself up and you think they're going to shut down this one too, the way that you introduce it with that frustration is going to come through in your voice, and they're going to feel it from you, even if it's the best idea you've ever come up with. And so first, you really need to understand your emotions completely and directly impact your voice and your voice dynamics and how you sound. But number 2, that means you then have to understand how to regulate your emotions, how to do your nervous system work and your nervous system regulation, so that when you are in a moment, because again, everyone's going to have moments of frustration. Everyone is going to have moments of insecurity. Whatever emotion you can think of, like, you are a human being having an experience in life. You don't live in a silo. You don't live in a bubble. Things will not be rainbow and sunshine and perfect all the time. And so you need to prepare yourself and equip yourself and understand yourself so that you know which regulation tools work for you, so that you can regulate yourself in the moment, help yourself deal with the emotion that you're experiencing, especially if it's a more negative one, so that you can get yourself to a more calm, grounded state and speak with the clarity and the confidence and the poise that you are aiming for, and not the default that you are used to. Because by now, your communication habits are habits. The way that you speak is quite literally something that you have trained yourself to do. If you're familiar with the subconscious mind, perhaps you've heard this example before, and this is a really wonderful one to use. Now, when we do something long enough, when we do something a lot of times, it starts to become a habit, and we start to do it unconsciously without realizing that we're doing it. Now, think back to when you were first learning to drive. Maybe you think back to when you were even learning to drive with a driving instructor, right? Like, you would get in the car, you would have to run mentally, maybe even verbally, through an actual checklist of like, did I buckle? Did I adjust my mirror? Did I adjust my side mirrors? Did I put myself in park? Did I check every single blind spot and mirror and everything, right? You had a mental checklist to go through to make sure that you did not make a single mistake. But now, years later, you hop in the car, you could be on the phone, giving your kid a snack, turning on the music, and automatically buckling up, adjusting your mirror, checking your blind spots on autopilot. Because once you have done something so many times, your brain creates almost like a roadmap, like a guidelines of like, this is how we do it, and this is the step-by-step of how we do it, so that you do it automatically without realizing. Right? And so your communication skills, your communication habits are something that you have been doing for years without thinking about. And so you do them automatically. That's why when you start to self-diagnose and work on your pace, your volume, and your tone, it's going to feel really uncomfortable and really hard at first, because you're not used to it. And your brain will continue to put you back into the state of doing what is unconscious because you've done it so many times. That's why anyone who tries to break a habit, it is hard because you are literally trying to get into your unconscious mind and break a pattern that has been there for years, if not decades. Okay, so give yourself some grace. It is completely possible to change the way that you communicate as long as you give yourself the time and the practice to do so. So let's get into how you will actually start to practice working on your volume, your pace, and your tone. Now, the first thing that I'd recommend is quite honestly sitting down. Maybe you block a time like 5 to 10 minutes. It could be once a week, could be once a day. And you can just place your phone, record a video, and speak naturally. Talk about something that you would talk about at work. Talk about something that you would talk about with a client, or just talk about your day. And then watch it back and just know, how was your pace? Were you talking slow? Were you talking fast? Did you have variation? Did you have variation only in certain moments, right? Every bit of information is honestly just useful feedback and not anything negative to take about yourself. Because I love to say, you should be friends with your feedback. Whatever communication habits you have, however you sound, however others are judging the way that you sound, is happening whether you want it to or not. And so if you want to bury your head in the sand, if you want to pretend that the way that you speak is 10 out of 10 perfect, okay. Okay, that's a decision. But that doesn't change the way that you come across to others and the thoughts and the evaluations that they're making. And so if you can look at the fact that you're now catching these moments and you're now understanding where you're making possible mistakes and where you have room for improvement, that is a good thing. Okay, that is a good thing because it will help you improve rather than continuing to make the same mistakes that you are pretending don't exist and others are noticing. Okay, so the second technique that I would recommend that is really, really fun and a little bit silly, take a book and read out loud. Take a book, read out loud, just get something you can read and read out loud. And as you read out loud, go through different variations where you read quietly for a bit, then you read loud for a bit. You can go super dramatic and over the top and train yourself to speak louder and with more emotion and with more passion so that when it comes to speaking up in a meeting, you have already put the reps in, right? Practice reading it with a kind tone, with a humorous tone, with a calm, neutral, grounded tone, right? You can pretend like if you were to give yourself character names, right? Like maybe you're like a TV jingle and you're reading it in the way that a TV jingle would come across. Or maybe you're like a meditation teacher and you would read it in a calm, slow way like a meditation teacher would, right? There's so many ways to improve your communication skills if you can get out of your head and get into actually practicing it, right? And so if you've got kids, one of the best ways to do this is to read them a book and really push yourself out of your comfort zone and take the characters in the book and practice speaking really quietly and making it mysterious and then getting really loud and, oh my gosh, this happened. And then add some frustration because something didn't work out, or then pouting and then get happy because it did. And what you'll find is it will be uncomfortable because you are hitting the boundaries of your comfort zone. So if you were to give yourself a rating of how much variety your pace typically has, right? Most people would not have that much variety in their pace. They don't typically talk very slowly and they don't typically talk very, very fast. So they will be somewhere in the middle, right? If we were using a 0 to 10 scale, they would probably be from like a 4 to a 6, maybe a 4 to a 7, right? But there's not that much variety. If you were talking about your volume and rating it on a 0 to 10 scale, same thing. Most people are at like a 4 to 6 or a 5 to 8. And then if you think about your tone, most people go through the same types of emotions every single day. And so when you're finding a way to train yourself and to put in the practice reps to change that, it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to feel weird because you've never given yourself the permission to do so. And again, going back to your unconscious patterns, the fact that you've done something so many times, it's become a pathway in your brain that follows automatically. going out of that path, stepping off of that path and in a new direction will be a little bit uncomfortable. And so find safe ways, fun ways, creative ways, like reading a kid's bedtime story and really getting into character to break out of your comfort zone. Because if you can stick to something like reading the book in a safe space, like at home where there's no one around you, and you can practice including your range from like 0 to 10, or maybe even 2 to 9, well, now you have so much more range that you understand how to use for yourself, so that when you're in a meeting, all of a sudden, instead of going from a 4 to a 6, going from a 3 to a 7 is easier because you've practiced going from a 2 to an 8. Now, the fact that you can practice going really, really quiet doesn't mean you ever will in a client call, but it means you understand the skill of quieting your voice down to emphasize something when you need to, or using a softer tone and slowing down when you're having perhaps a difficult conversation or holding space through some difficult feedback for someone else. It's like understanding that there's different, almost like archetypes, there's different characters that we are used to, like the therapist or the spin instructor who's like so hyped up and motivating everyone, or the teacher who shows up and just lectures, right? It's almost like you want to be able to put on those different hats and become those different characters when you need to, so that you have a variety in your communication skills. You have variety in the tools that you're able to use. And that, my friend, is how you become a much better communicator, through 3 simple things like working on your pace, volume, and tone. Okay? I hope you found this helpful. If you stick to it, I promise you it is incredibly helpful and will change the way that you sound and the way that you feel speaking. Because again, the biggest takeaway I want you to have here is, it's one thing to understand your mindset. It's one thing to understand your habits. And it's one thing to understand your comfort zone and the boundaries of where your habits end. But to get to the next level, to speak with clarity, with confidence, with poise, to be charismatic when you speak, you need to expand your comfort zone. You need to expand the range of skills that you have. You need to expand what you're comfortable doing with your voice and how you're comfortable sounding in front of others, because that is the impression that you're making. Okay? Last thing I want to leave you with. When we think about communication, when we think about people, when we think about the average person, right? I won't even get into the statistics of this, but the majority of people fall in the range of being average, right? That's just how it works. And so if you can work on even tweaking your communication skills a little, so again, thinking of that 0 to 10 scale, if everyone is in the range of 4 to 6 roughly, and you are able to go from a 3 to a 7, you already begin to stand out because you have more skill than the average person. And when you think about who you would deem as confident, who you would deem as charismatic, who you would deem as being a top communicator, think about it. It's not the fact that always their skills are that much better than yours, or that their ideas are that much better than yours. It's the fact that they give themselves permission to play with more range. And so if everyone's at a 4 to a 6, and you're able to take yourself from a 3 to a 7, you've just taken yourself out of average and into the top status, right? You got to keep working to get, if you want to get to like elite, top 1%, all these cliche terms that are thrown out there. But think about it. It doesn't take much to go past average. And as soon as you're past average, that's when you begin to stand out in a positive way as being a great communicator, as being influential, as being charismatic, as being confident. And all of a sudden, people doubt your expertise less. People trust your authority more. People believe the direction that you're guiding them in with the passion and the certainty that you're providing, all because you started by working on your volume, your pace, and your tone, and giving yourself the permission to go outside your comfort zone. That's it, my friend. That's it. So let me know which of this was most helpful. If you want more fun techniques to get out of your comfort zone, comment down below. Let me know as well, and I'll come up with some more fun ones for you. And go ahead, pick a book, read it out loud, and let me know how it goes. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.